Hello there friends and welcome! To accompany my max damage guide, this is a video on how to achieve the max defenses possible for a very tanky character. I've heard a lot of people say that damage negation and armor don't matter in Elden Ring, which is not true at all. You can eventually achieve such high damage negation stats through armor and all sorts of buffs that you are easily able to face tank, or at the very least, take even the most powerful boss attacks, including late game bosses, and still survive to see the day, thus ensuring pretty easy victories. First, I want to get started with some comparisons between different tiers of damage negation, from low to middle to high, just to show you how important this is when it comes to tanking and absorbing enemy hits. After that, I'll cover each individual source, the best ones at least. But if you prefer, you can just skip right ahead to that, as my videos all have time chapters. Now for all of these tests, I have pretty much the same character, level 145, with 60 vigor. The damage negation values, however, will be different. So first, let us see how a character with very high 74 physical damage negation fares. And all of these examples will be against Melania, one of the most infamous bosses of the game. So see how her damage isn't really high at all. We can take quite a lot of attacks. Now let us see how the same character fares, but with just the bare minimum of damage negation, by wearing a light armor mage set, and nothing else to boost his damage negation.
I am Melania.
We pretty much got one shot by her heavy attack. And this is all with the same hit point value. We go from tanking quite a lot of hits to pretty much being 3 to 2 shot. That's how much difference damage negation can make. Now let us try it with way higher damage negation, but not as high as the first try, so 42. We can certainly survive a lot more. Alright, so now that you know how powerful damage negation can be, let us talk about the most common sources of it, and the first one is of course armor. And usually the heavy armor sets are of course the ones with the best damage negation. As far as physical negation, that is. The best one overall is without a doubt the Bull Gold set, and I already have a guide link to the side here on how you can easily find this armor set. Without any other sources of damage negation, it will give you 38 against physical, pretty high, and even 100 poise. And for the beginning of the game, you can't really go wrong with the Banished at Night set for 35 physical damage negation that you can easily farm in Stormveil Castle right here from the Rampart Tower by just going down the stairs and defeating the Banished at Night again and again. A pretty great upgrade over your Vagabond starter set. And for the mid game and so on, you also have Blaive armor, the Royal Remains, but most importantly, the Veteran armor from Commander Niall, the Lionel set, and also Radahn's armor. And if you're wondering about how to properly roll with heavy armor, remember you can always rely on the Winged Crystal tier. I also have a guide for it linked to the side here. And the Greyjar's Arsenal Talisman, so that your character can achieve light load even when fully decked in heavy armor and carrying 2 massive oversized weapons. Armor, however, is just the first step. To really min-max our damage negation, we have to rely on talismans, buffs and consumables too, as I will now show you. First, we have some pretty powerful buffs. If you've already watched my How to Maximize Damage guide, then you already know a few of them. The Commander's Standard, which actually works for both damage negation and to increase your own damage as well. When you use its weapon art, you'll gain a 20% bonus, both to damage inflicted and also to your physical damage negation, so we go from 38 to 50. It's important to note that a 20% decrease in damage taken doesn't mean you actually increase your damage negation by 20, which is why we went from 38 to 50 instead of 38 to 58. But the higher your damage negation, the less damage you'll take. The downside about the Commander's Standard is that it only lasts 30 seconds. The Golden Vow spell, on the other hand, will increase your damage negation by around 10%, so we go from 38 to 44.6. On the other hand, it does last way longer than Commander Standard, for around 90 seconds instead of just 30. It's important to note that both of these will not stack with one another, but they also empower all of your allies that are nearby. So you have to choose between either Golden Vow or the Commander Standard. Golden Vow requiring 25 Faith and Commander Standard 24 Strength. Now for another very powerful source of damage negation, we have the Ritual Shield Talisman. Just like the Ritual Sword Talisman from my damage stacking guide, the Ritual Shield will raise your damage negation of all sorts when your hit points are at maximum. So my character goes from 38 physical and around 26 for magic and the elements, to 56 physical and 48. This might not seem like much because of the maximum hit point limitation, but trust me, it can matter a lot. When you combine it with other sources, you can eventually achieve even higher than 80% physical damage negation for the first hit, which pretty much ignores almost all of the attack. And remember, you can always heal during, let's say, boss battle, as to easily absorb a very hard hitting attack. And you also have some other healing effects to make this even better, like the Assassin's Crimson Dagger to restore your hit points on critical hits, the Godskin Swaddling Cloth for more hit points on successive attacks, even better for fast hitting weapons, or also regeneration spells, such as Bestial Vitality. Now that we have already talked about some general sources of damage negation that works for all of the types, so physical, elemental and magic, let us focus on specific ways of increasing your physical damage negation even further. For a very easy way, we have the boiled prawn and also the boiled crab food consumables. Both last for around 1 minute, so pretty nice, and the boiled prawn has a lesser effect, so let's see. My physical negation goes from 65 to 70. Meanwhile, with the boiled crab, it will go from 65 to 72.4. Notice that these effects will not stack with each other, so you have to choose between the boiled prawn or the boiled crab, the crab being stronger of course. Getting these two consumables is also very simple, because you can simply buy an infinite amount of them, and here's how it goes. The easiest way to get these food items is by buying them from the Blackguard NPC. You first meet him at the Boil Prawn Shack, right here in Liurnia of the Lakes. At the beginning, he'll only have boiled prawns for sale, and after you buy a few of them...
Never met someone with a taste for prawn I can trust. We'd make good mates, I reckon.
And you'll even get a new gesture. So after you buy a few prawns and reach the Atlas Plateau region, Blackguard will move right here, to the edge of this little lake, the closest graces being Capital Rampart or Outer Wall Battleground.
You again,
Speak with him,
I got crab.
and he'll have
Cooked
updated
up
his
fresh.
stock from prawns to crabs. So you can now buy both of them. Just be careful, because if you free the Dung Eater from the sewers in the Royal Capital and proceed along his quest, he will kill the Blackguard NPC and you won't be able to buy your crab or prawns anymore. For another extremely powerful source of physical damage negation, we have the Black Flames Protection Incantation. It costs 30 faith, so somewhat high, but on the other hand, it will increase your physical damage negation by a massive amount. At 65, it will go to 77, and even without other sources of physical negation, my character would go from 38 by just having the Bull Goat set to 60. Very powerful indeed. Even by just having a light armor set, you'll go from 10 to 42. It lasts for 70 seconds, so quite a lot, but it does have a downside. It will reduce the effect of your hit point healing flask by around 20%. But frankly, considering how much damage you will be absorbing through this, the flask debuff isn't really that noticeable. When you stack it with other sources of damage negation of course, which is the entire point of this guide. Now here's an important note. Black Flames Protection will not stack with the prawn and crab consumable food buffs we just talked about, and also you cannot have the Flame Grant Me Strength spell for higher damage at the same time. Now to find the Black Flames Protection incantation, after you reach the Helig Tree area, so Miquella's Helig Tree, by finding the 2 halves of the Helig Tree medallion, speak with Gideon Ofnir at the Table of Lost Grace and he'll give you the spell. Alright, so we have a last way of highly increasing our physical damage negation, and it is through talismans. The Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman and also the Dragon Crest Shield Talisman. The Great Shield is pretty much the best of them all, while the Dragon Crest has normal +1 and +2 versions at a lesser effect. They don't have any downsides and are amazing because at the end, physical damage is the most dangerous damage type of them all. The Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman can actually be found in Miquella's Helig Tree. For example, my character with light armor only at 10, 11 damage negation against physical blows, we will achieve 28 by just having the Dragon Crest. It is certainly a very worthwhile investment, for around 20% less damage taken. The +1 version of the Dragon Crest Talisman is right here at the Scented Hero's Grave in Altus Plateau. As for the +2, you'll have to go to Crumbling Farum Azula. Alright, so with physical damage negation out of the way, let's now talk about sources that increase your elemental and magical damage negation, to really make our character tanky, able to survive against anything. Each of the elements, so fire, lightning, holy, and so on, has their own amulets to highly increase the corresponding damage negation, so the Flame Drake Talisman for fire, the Bolt Drake for lightning, and the Helic Drake for holy. My favorite, however, is the Pearl Drake Talisman, because it actually increases your damage negation against all of them, magic, fire, lightning and holy, so perfect, even if it is at a lesser amount. Of course, it stands to reason that, let's say you're fighting one of the magma worm enemies or a fire breathing dragon, you probably want the Flame Drake instead of Pearl Drake, because you know the enemy is only going to use fire attacks, so feel free to change these talismans around based on the damage type the enemy is most likely to use. Pearl Drake is just, well, an all-around great talisman. For magic and elemental negation, we also have a few incantations for each of the types, so magic fortification to reduce magic damage, flame fortification for fire, and so on, culminating in the Barrier of Gold spell to highly increase the magic damage negation for your own character and everyone around you, summons included. For example, with Barrier of Gold and Golden Vow the Commander's Standard, plus the Pearl Drake Talisman +2, my character has 84, pretty much 85 magical damage negation, enough to easily tank any of the spellcasters in the game for sure. As I've just said, use the spells depending on the area and the enemies you're going to face. On the Rhea Lucaria Academy, for example, it stands to reason that you want to maximize your magic damage negation instead of physical. Now last but not least, we have another very special source of damage negation, the Uplifting Aromatic. I have already talked about it in my How to Maximize Damage guide that you can find linked to the side here, but this works for both ways. First, it will actually increase your damage of all sources, but second, whenever you cast it, you'll gain a magical shield on your character, this yellow bulb around me here. Also works for allies nearby. It will increase all of your damage negation by a massive amount, 96 here for example, which is enough to easily tank the first of the hits the enemy does. It only works for their first attack, but remember, the secondary effect of increasing damage will still remain on for 40 seconds. Now for a similar effect, at least damage negation wise, we have the Opaline Bubble tier. When you enhance your Wondrous Physick Flask with it, it will also pretty much negate almost all of the entire first attack you take. But remember, it only works for the first attack. After that, for the Opaline Bubble tier, you'll have to defeat the Minor Erdtree Avatar boss, right here in the Weeping Peninsula region. For another very powerful source of magic and elemental negation, we have the Opaline Heart tier. It will give 50% less damage to all of these sources, magic and elemental. So my character now has 87 against magic and close to 70 against the other elements, which can of course be increased even further by using the specific elemental talismans. This crystal tier can be found by defeating the Putrid Erdtree avatar right here in the Minor Erdtree of Caelid, around the northeastern part of the region. Also, don't forget that each of the elements and magic also has a specific dried liver food buff to increase your corresponding damage negation. Alright, so now that we know what the best ways of increasing our damage negation are, let's have a quick recap on how to properly stack them all. So first, choose between either Commander's Standard or Golden Vow. After that, for physical negation, Boiled Prawn or Crab, or Black Flame's Protection. Then the Ritual Shield Talisman, Dragon Crest Great Shield, Pearl Drake or another that increases a specific elemental or magic negation. And lastly we have effects that only work once, like Uplifting Aromatic or the Opaline Bubble tier. And remember, you can always use the Heart tier instead to boost all of your negations besides physical. And this does stack with the other ones I mentioned now. Which is how this character now has 82 against physical and close to 70 against the rest. Lastly, I just want to say that it is very much possible to have a tanky character that still deals an amazing amount of damage. You don't have to choose one or the other, because as I've just shown to you in this guide, most of the damage negation effects come from either gear like talismans, armor, some consumables too, and then spellcasting, mostly incantations, so you don't necessarily need high faith. Also, don't forget to increase your vigor. Up to around 60 is enough, but you can get by with something like 40 in the mid game, and so on. As I have shown you, having vigor is not enough, you really need damage negation too. Alright everyone, so this was it for my How to Survive and Maximize Your Defenses in Elden Ring guide. If you found this guide useful, then please remember to like, subscribe, and even consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. If you think I've missed a certain source of damage negation buff that you like, please be sure to comment down below. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends.